Welcome to Halifax. I'm Ashley Morgan with CKPG News. We traveled across the country to the 2011 Canada Winter Games in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Over the next half hour, we will introduce you to Canada's largest multi-sport event for young people. We will highlight infrastructure, including lasting legacies, how volunteers play a huge role in these games, plus the economic impact, athlete treatment, and of course, how local arts and culture make each Games unique. We begin here at the Canada Games Centre. This facility was part of the vision for the 2011 Games, as it will house artistic gymnastics, badminton, and synchronized swimming. But it will also have a lasting impact on the community. It can be used for sports such as basketball, volleyball. It also has an indoor track and 2 pools. We take a look now at the lasting legacies of the 2011 Games. Halifax, Nova Scotia, a city of 400,000. Steep streets, cultural buildings, and home to the 2011 Canada Winter Games.
Certainly it took the community to really step forward and want to actively go after this opportunity.
The federal and provincial governments have historically contributed to the funding of the Games. This year, $11 million came from the province, $11 million from the Government of Canada, plus almost $9 million from the city itself, for a combined total budget of $31 million.
We didn't have to raise taxes. We didn't have to stretch our budget to achieve it. It worked out, and it worked very well.
For us, we're a smaller community. It's a bigger bite, obviously, from a financial perspective, but Council will work through a process. We are fortunate we have a number of years to plan for this, so we're able to put away, the strategy is to put away a little bit each year.
Halifax is one of the largest cities to host the Games. Part of the overall plan was the construction of a $45 million Canada Games Centre.
We're standing now actually on the second floor of the field house, which is a 6-lane, 200-meter indoor track. Below us is the Canada Games Centre field house, which will host artistic gymnastics and badminton during the Canada Winter Games. We have about 12,000 square foot fitness center. We also have an aquatics center, which during the Canada Games will host synchronized swimming. Post-Games, it will host a variety of community activities.
Crews were busy putting the final touches on the building the day before it opened. However, long after the Games, the facility will serve as a lasting legacy when it opens to the community in March.
It'll be the centerpiece of the community, which everybody can enjoy, from playground to podium. For all ages, there's kind of something here for everybody.
This Canada Games Centre boasts 250 solar panels on its roof. It's going for a LEED Silver designation. It will be a lasting legacy for this community, but it's not the only one here in Halifax. The outdoor oval near the downtown was originally built as a temporary site for long-track speed skating during the Games. But with over 100,000 citizens taking advantage of the ice before the Games began, residents have made it clear they want to keep the oval running.
It was meant to be temporary, but the community says no, we want it to stay. So far about 100,000 people have already skated on the oval, and there is petitions asking us to keep the oval as another legacy piece. There is companies stepping forward offering capital dollars and operational dollars as well. So that's an issue of discussion, and hopefully we will be keeping that for the long term.
Very comparable to what we have at the Northern Sports Centre combined with the Aquatic Centre. We're quite comfortable with the facilities we have. We do have a capital budget of $20 million, just under $20 million. Most of that will be focused on Kin Centre improvements, but we're extremely comfortable with the caliber, the frankly world-class caliber facilities we have.
The majority of the $18 million capital improvement budget planned for the 2015 Games in Prince George will go to upgrade the Kin Centre. Delegates say full community engagement will be sought when it comes to other projects on the list.
Prince George has a short list of projects to be upgraded for the 2015 games. It's expected $18 million of federal, provincial, and municipal money will be invested. So far, the Kin Centre has been deemed an important project. However, there will be full community engagements for other projects to be added to the list.
Here at the volunteer check-in area at the Metro Center, volunteers are gathering to find out their tasks for the day. Over 5,000 volunteers will be needed to make these games a success for the 3,600 athletes. They are the backbone of this operation, the reason the games can be a success.
So, you want to see my skates?
Yeah, I do. Have a seat, show me them. If you can believe it, David Ewell still skates in these. The boots and blades are old, but not as old as he is. Ewell is the eldest volunteer at the 2011 Canada Winter Games in Halifax. He is 88.2 and counting.
They probably won't realize how old I am. Most people don't look at me and say, "You're 88."
Ewell is a longtime figure skater and judge of the sport. He and his two sons got involved with figure skating at a young age.
And I can remember the first skate I ever had was on double runners, and double runners shouldn't be allowed. But a young fella came along, put his arms under my shoulders and whistled me around, and I said, "This is it."
Ewell's love for the sport has led him to volunteering at various competitions over the years. When he found out the games were coming to Halifax, he couldn't pass up the opportunity to get involved.
It's just going to be fun, and I'm contributing something useful.
Ewell will volunteer here at St. Margaret's Centre. The venue will host short track speed skating and figure skating. Seniors make great volunteers as they often have the time needed for volunteerism. But besides catching up with the oldest volunteer at these games, we also met the youngest, who is giving up her break from school to volunteer at the 2011 games.
Honored guests, athletes, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2011 Canada Winter Games and your medal presentation for squash.
Heather Warren will be announcing as part of her duties. Heather was 13 when she signed up to volunteer for the games and recently turned 14. According to games policy, volunteers must be at least 14 to take part.
It's really exciting because you can bring experience to future games if you want to volunteer, and you learn more, and you can pass that stuff on to other people, and it's really good because I learn a lot from the other people who have done it before.
Heather is the youngest in her family of 6. Her father and sister came along as she learned about her role at one of the 3 venues she's volunteering at.
It was really a great opportunity to get some experience with volunteering and also meet some athletes, and you don't realize how many people it takes. A lot of people don't realize how many people it takes to put something like this together.
Heather is a hockey player, and she has her sights set to compete at the 2015 Canada Winter Games in Prince George. She's hoping if she makes it, she can rely on volunteers here.
Thousands of volunteers will be needed in Prince George over the next 4 years leading up to the games. You can email the committee now to volunteer, or you can sign up through the 2015 Canada Winter Games Facebook page.
Coming up next on Prince George 2015, the first lessons, we find out the projected economic impact Halifax will see from the games and who is benefiting. Stay with us. Halifax secured the 2011 Canada Winter Games, the planning began. And a big portion of this is the economic impact to local businesses. A look now at who's benefiting from the games. While athletes, coaches, and team managers are vying for gold, silver, and bronze, businesses in Halifax are hoping for some green. There's a projected $125 million economic spin-off from these games. It comes at a good time of year, as February usually sees a lull in business.
having a lot of people in town at this time of year is quite important. We'll often have conferences and this kind of thing at this time of year, but and we'll often have major events. We've had a number of major events through Halifax, but nothing this big before.
The projected economic impact for Prince George in 2015 is $70 to $90 million. Halifax is poised to see more, simply because it's a larger center.
Certainly, business is very engaged in all of this. They're doing business. The hotels are full. Great things are happening, but they're also getting involved through volunteer work and through sponsorship and so on.
Fred Morley attributes pre-games construction, visitors, and the multiplier effect, which is the income that's earned locally and spent over and over again, as key factors. Another, although difficult to measure, is the city being highlighted in national media.
And I'm very interested in seeing how we can leverage what is essentially a 2-week intensive television commercial across Canada to expose Prince George and all that it has to offer.
With accommodations, the Athletes Village, and several venues located in the downtown, local businesses in the core are hoping to profit from these games. Objects is located right across the street from the busy Celebration Square. It's hoping to cash in on some extra business.
Between January and March is sort of that downtime where you don't have a whole lot of business, so I'm hoping that it sort of peaks our sales and gets people knowing about Objects, because we're still a very new store.
One of the big things we're working at and looking at right now is, what does sponsorship look like on the ground in Halifax? What type of branding's involved? What does it really take for businesses to want to be a sponsor?
The Canada Games Council is looking for Prince George to expand long-term national sponsorship. The move could ensure stable funding and in-kind value for future games in this country. As businesses in Prince George learn more about the games and the $70 to $90 million expected to be injected into the community, you can bet many will be looking to cash in on the opportunity.
Do the circle, so
maybe just because your name.
At the heart of the games are the athletes. Over 3,600 youth from across Canada have traveled to Halifax for these games. This is the first year the athletes will be housed in hotels for their accommodation. 4 downtown hotels in Halifax are linked by these pedways. One of the first things on the to-do list for athletes when they arrive in Halifax is to get acquainted with their accommodation and venues. This is the first year athletes were housed in hotels.
The accommodations are very good for athletes. We have put additional bunk beds into some of the rooms just to try to get more athletes in there. But each athlete has their own bed, so some are sleeping in king-size beds by themselves. Others are in bunk beds in those rooms.
Prince George athlete Avril Harris attended the 2007 Canada Winter Games in Whitehorse. He says staying in hotels is a step up.
Actually, I do like this better. There's not as many athletes to a room, and then it's a bit more like feeling at home. You get your own bed, it's like big-size bed, one washroom like to 3 people, and it's just a lot more like home.
4 downtown hotels are being used to put up over 3,600 athletes, coaches, and team managers. The hotels are linked through pedways, making it possible to travel from their rooms to the athletes' village without going outside into the cold. Athletes will make their way to this building, the World Trade and Convention Center, for all their meals in the Athletes Village. The ballroom can house up to 700 athletes at one time, with meals beginning as early as 5 a.m. 210,000 meals will be served during the course of the games. 3,500 pizzas, 20,000 muffins, and 14,000 pounds of bananas.
Well, especially for me, because I have allergies, so they accommodate me really well and stuff, so I just go talk to them.
It's unlikely any of the athletes noticed the controversy when, just days before the opening ceremonies, one of the co-chairs of security quit.
As I understand, that was a personal decision on his behalf, but we've been putting our people in place. We are working through obviously the first couple of days, making sure that things are in place, and we feel very comfortable that our access control and security plan for the athletes is well in place.
Regardless, athletes seem to be focused on the reason they're in Halifax, to compete.
Everyone's just excited to see you, giving you support, getting you all pumped up to be the best you can be in your sport.
Prince George will also look to house its athletes in hotels during the 2015 Canada Winter Games. Various hotels in the core will alter their rooms to include such things as bunk beds to house the 3,600 athletes. Coming up next on Prince George 2015, The First Lessons, we take a look at how each host city puts its mark on the games with local arts and culture. Welcome back. When it comes to the arts and culture of the games, each community looks to showcase its local flair. In Nova Scotia, New Scotland, you see threads from European countries as well as influences from the Atlantic Ocean. From the opening ceremonies to murals on the streets, Halifax is full of flavor. It's a cultural mosaic made up of over 100 different ethnic groups. Major influences in Nova Scotia come from Scotland, Ireland, England, and from the sea.
Canada Games, while it's a sporting event and a major sporting event for our next generation of athletes that will stand on the podium at higher level competitions, I mean, I think the cultural element is an essential piece to the Canada Games movement.
The opening and closing ceremonies are a chance to showcase local culture. As crews set up at the Metro Centre in downtown Halifax, themes of tall ships and the Atlantic are clearly present.
It was set up in such a way that your athletes were your backdrop and they were the ones waving the flags, and so there was real thought given to the visual appeal of the whole thing all the way through. The performances were fabulous. They were absolutely top-notch performers, and they were interspersed throughout the pageantry that had to happen.
Halifax and Nova Scotia have obvious roots stemming from Europe, but just like most Canadian communities, they have First Nations culture here as well, but not as prominent as in BC. Joshua Seymour with the Host Society traveled to Halifax to see how culture is implemented into the games.
Usually when you go into another nation's territory and you're there for a while, usually you bring a gift for giving thanks for that, for them allowing you to be on their territory, which is why I've carved my feather case here, which I'll present to the Grand Chief.
We are looking extremely forward to working with Prince George. We think there's a lot of heart and emotion in that community. And we know that decision toward the Games to Prince George will make a difference in that community.
We've got the talent, and we've got the people, and we've got the willingness, and the relationships. So I talked to some of the other folks about the fact that there seemed to be a scarcity of First Nations presence here in Halifax. It was very different than BC. I think that First Nations will be much more in the foreground in our games.
One thing is for sure, Halifax has set the bar when it comes to showcasing its local flavor, but Prince George is up for the challenge. A huge focus of Prince George's bid for the 2015 Games centered around arts and culture. Moving forward, there will be an arts working group looking to highlight our local culture in the 2015 Games. It will also feature things like nightly entertainment venues featuring local and BC talent.
As the Canada Winter Games heads west, preparations are underway for the 2015 Canada Winter Games in Prince George. With over 3,600 athletes, 120,000 visitors, over 5,000 volunteers, and a projected economic impact of 70 to 90 million, excitement is growing. Thanks for joining CKPG News, Prince George 2015, the first lessons from Halifax, Nova Scotia. I'm Ashley Morgan.